everybody, welcome to the aoe2 AI scripting tutorial number 10 special. Special in that sense that we will be going over some things that we covered in the last 9 videos, also adding more knowledge to the scripting community, and basically giving a thank you to all the scripters and friends I have built up in the last few months, making these videos and also scripting my AI. So without further ado, let's get going. We will start with quiz question 1. What's the difference between these facts? Building type count building, building type count total building. I asked to email or Discord me privately the answer before the 4th of July. Apparently the question was harder than I thought because nobody had answered until yet. Has somebody answered now? Yes, one person has answered the question. This is Sion Siro. Congratulations. Buildings type count means all buildings that are completely built, and buildings type count total also include buildings which are still being built, hence including foundations. Next we will go on to references. In video 1 I said there wasn't one website that contains all the information. This is still correct. We have already seen the Computer Player Strategy Builder Guide, which contains the explanation for the level 1 to 3 programming, but there is also a user patch scripting guide which contains level 3 and level 4 and 5 explanations. I will show this website. We'll put the link in the description. Firstly, this is quite interesting. You have the strategic numbers. Remember the explorers, total number of explorers. It tells you the explanation like we've seen, also the default values, and if it's active or not active at the moment. Active. Watch out, not all the strategic numbers are active. Some are obsolete, which means they have no function in Age of Empires 2. Here are also strategic numbers which aren't contained in the strategy builder guide, because some new strategic numbers have been added, for instance about the boar. Enable boar hunting, for instance, set to 1 to target deer and boar. If set to do, deer will be ignored. And the default is nil. This is why villagers don't hunt the boar in normal situations. More on the boar in a future video. This is just an example of a strategic number which isn't included in the Computer Player Strategy Builder Guide. More interesting are the user patch commands. None of these are in the Computer Player Strategy Builder Guide, and these are commands which are used for level 4 and level 5 programming. You might remember the upchat data to self. It will tell you also the syntax. It is very important to study the syntax as when a command doesn't work how you want it to. Might be because you haven't studied the syntax correctly or haven't read everything of the command, all the information. Now we have then level 1 to level 3 programming in the strategy builder guide. We have user patch commands on this website. Leif Erikson 114 is making an all-containing encyclopedia, which is very interesting because it will start to group all the commands, for instance, both of the computer player strategy builder guide as user patch commands. Again, if you click here on a command, for instance idle farm count, I'll just pick one, you get the description, you get the explanation, and you get the syntax. What's handy is you can click on the syntax, compare up, to get more information of the parameters. We've seen this in previous videos, comparisons made with constant goals, strategic numbers. This is all explained, prefixes and stuff, and contained in the AI scripting encyclopedia, which is being made by Leif Erikson. It's got a list of strategic numbers. This is still under construction. Object tables with the IDs, technology tables also with the IDs. Doesn't contain them all yet, but Leif is working very hard on completing this project. Also, for those who want to look forward, there are some DUC guides here. There's two. DUC is level 5 programming, which I haven't touched on in my tutorials as of yet, and some more resources which will be further built up in the future. There is also, as mentioned in the past, the AI Scripters community, where you have a Discord channel where scripting discussions are ongoing. There's also a forum where there are scripting discussions, but also where, for instance, tournaments are organized and AIs are stored so you can download them to study or to play, whatever. And you've got my tutorial videos, which runs both through the existing knowledge, but also tests and adds new knowledge with investigational tests, which we will also be doing today. We will be studying some spirit of the code. An example. Remember, in a previous video we studied relative operators, and we know that our AI scouts. Let's have a look for the code. Setting up scouting. We know our tutorial AI scouts for livestock. Once it's found livestock, it will stop scouting with the villagers, tell you found livestock, stop exploring with villagers, and it will only explore with the scouts. Now, if we demonstratively have a look at how we can read strategic numbers of our friends, our allies, there is a command called up allied sm. And what does that do? Perform a comparison with an allied AI's strategic number. Up allied SN, any ally, SN maximum town size greater or equal to 30, for instance. Now, we want to see who finds the sheep first. So, a playful depth rule, you could call it. Up allied SM, we check every ally. SN total number of explorers, this is checking the strategic number of every ally, has to be smaller than our own total number of explorers, because we know that our SN total number of explorers is set to 11, and when it has found sheep it gets set to 1. We want it to chat to myself. Every ally has found their sheep except for me, if this is true, meaning that we are still set to 11 and every ally is set to 1. So for quickness we will just copy paste this code. I also know from previous experience I have to retype quotation marks. Okay, let's see what this does. So we set a game up, 3 tutorial AIs and 1 practice AI on Arabia. Up allied SM, and we'll see who finds the sheep first. It says every ally has found their sheep except for me. With something that I've learned from another scripter, from Aleph, if you hold down Control Shift and an F key, you can have a look at the other AI computer players, if all players are AIs. I click Control Shift F2. It doesn't look like this ally has found sheep. I look at Control Shift F3. It doesn't look like this ally has found sheep, even though it said every ally has found their sheep except for me. That means something else is going on. We know that the script is read from top to bottom, and that def rules are executed and others are skipped. What we shall do now is we're going to test how our own SM is set up. So we define 2 constants. For quickness, I'm going to copy paste those here. A goal, my SN explorers, just give it number 11. It's got nothing to do with that number, with the number of explorers. The SN total number of explorers is 18, which I can get from Leaf's website or from the user patch website. We will put this script in front or in the beginning of my script, what will it do? It will upchat data to myself. My strategic number before script is, and then it will give me the number of explorers, and I will put the script at the bottom. If we then do a restart, it says my SN before the script is 4, my SN after the script is 11. Why is it 4 before the script? Because of the default. The default for that SM is 4. We can double check this on Leaf's website. There's ID number 18. The default is 4. So first, when the script is read, it is set to 4. Here it will be set to 11, and the readout at the bottom is set to 11. This means that if this script is read first, we are guessing that this is also on the default 4. While mine is at 11, hence it thinks that every ally has found their sheep except for me. So what do? We could change this to check this to a constant, namely that every ally, his SN number has to be smaller than 4, meaning when it has found its sheep, this number will be 1. If it's still on default, it won't trigger because 4 is not smaller than 4. It's not like this. So let's have a look. When we restart the game, it says every ally has found their sheep except for me. Let's go and check. Teal doesn't look like it's found its sheep, and neither has green, because the villagers are still exploring. And green even states now that it's only just found its livestock. So what's going on? Why isn't this working? We need to dig deeper. Mainly, we need to know what the ally SN number is at the start of a game. Testing allied SN. So we copy paste these constants for quickness. A new goal SN explorers, allied SN is fact number 37. We copy paste, can put it here, doesn't really matter, should be in chatting, but I'll put it in chatting. for neatness purposes. Okay, so what we want to have a look at is we get the fact, doesn't matter if it's maximum fact, any ally, the SN number, which SN number, SN total number explorers, and we put it in the goal SN explorers. We will chat this data to myself, stating SN ally is this, and it will give us what the actual strategic number value is at the beginning of the game. So, because it keeps repeating, the SN of the ally starts at -1. Afterwards, it's set to 11. And after all the allies have found the sheep, it's set to 1. Teal's found its sheep, green has found its sheep. This is a very important conclusion we are making. When testing our own SN, our observation is before the SN is manually modified, the strategic number is set to the default 4. But if we test an allied strategic number, before an allied script is run, his strategic number is on -1. Then 11 until livestock is found, when it changes to 1. Default 4 is not detected, as default 4 is run at the beginning of its script, but it's changed before the end of its script. So we're going to try and discover something here, how the AI reads different scripts. We're going to make a hypothesis. We know observation 1 and observation 2. All strategic numbers start at -1. When a script of a player is run for the first time, just before the script is run of that player, all strategic numbers are set to their default value only of that player, not of all players. And once the strategic numbers have been set, either to their default or manually set in the script, the strategic numbers don't automatically return to the unset value of -1 or the default value of the strategic number if a manual strategic number has been entered. This is a hypothesis or analysis which is made in graphical form, and this might be a lot more clearer. You start a game, and we will use the example of the strategic number of explorers. The defaults aren't set yet. All strategic numbers are set to -1. Strategic number explorers player 1 -1 and so on. Then before it reads the script of player 1, the defaults of player 1 are set, meaning the strategic number of player 1 is set to 4, but the strategic numbers of the other players are still at -1. When the script of player 1 is read, the strategic number of player 1 is set to 11. There's an asterisk here. 11 means no livestock found. This will of course be set to 1 when livestock is found. But the strategic number of the other players are set to -1. Default value of player 2 is set before the script of player 2 is read for the first time, and the default value of player 3 is set before the script is read of player 3. Once we've gone through the scripts of all the AIs, it will go through all the scripts again without setting the defaults and keep repeating this cycle. This is quite important to know and isn't documented anywhere as far as I know. as it can lead to bugs in the beginning of the game because you're trying to read your allies' strategic number while all the strategic numbers of your allies are set to -1 if the player number is higher than your own player number, meaning it is -1 before their script has been handled. So how do we debug it? We put an extra line in. Up ally does n, every ally as Untitled Number Explorer is not the constant -1. Some scripters have noticed this bug also, didn't know exactly what was wrong, but they put in game time is bigger than 10 seconds, for instance, and then the script seemed to work. We can immediately hit the nail on the head by stating that the script isn't allowed the strategic number isn't allowed to be -1. Like this. And let's see if it executes it correctly now. So blue's found livestock, teal hasn't, and green hasn't. And you see, from green's point of view, every ally has found sheep except for me. Teal has found sheep, blue has found sheep, and green hasn't yet. So the code seems to work correctly now. Blue didn't say at the beginning every ally has found livestock except for me. This is how we debugged this fun code by studying the spirit of the code. I think this is important knowledge in team games when comparing strategic numbers of your allies. I hope this is helpful both for new scripters as for more experienced scripters. Next we will be looking at constants, at the constants names. This is because in a past video I have stated you can choose for the name whatever you want, which is extremely vague but also extremely untrue. There are a set of conditions constant names have to adhere to. You can only use American Standard Code for information interchange printable characters, not even extended ASCII code characters. The constant can be made up of numbers from 0 to 9, from letters A to Z and A to Z in capitals. Yes, the constants are case sensitive, meaning a capital A is different to a small a. Very important, might be handy in some cases, but you can also use special characters, and this is what surprised me a bit, is that all these characters are usable as a constant name. What you aren't allowed to use are reserved characters like the quotation marks, brackets and semicolon, and things like spaces, tabs, returns, line feeds and stuff. So to test whether you can name constants with characters like these, I have devconst, a constant like this. I will have prepared here chatting data true, chat to all, and this is this constant here. Save, and we want it to say test. We will chat to all this constant, which is defined here. True chat to all should chat test. Let's see what it does. It says test, which is what we wanted. To test, for instance, the case sensitiveness, we can put a small a and put in test small a and put in there a small a. And it does say test small a. To go one step beyond, I have another def const here. It looks very similar to this, but here these accent marks are in this way than that way, and here they're the opposite, down and then up. Just to see, does it actually see a difference between the special characters, even something as subtle as accent marks. So if it doesn't see a difference, it will just give test like here. If it does see a difference, it should say test bis. And indeed it says test bis, meaning that the special characters do have a meaning for the computer. I have also tested how long a constant name can be, and to say it wrongly, it can be as long as you want, but the scripting language only allows for a line of maximum 256 characters long, which is actually 255 characters long plus a return or an enter at the end. So what I've done to test this is I have here a constant just called a of 255 long, and we have to chat to all this. Like that. An extra a. Why do I have to write it like this? Of course, if I use the maximum length, I have to open bracket def const space, then enter, put the name of the constant on the second line, return, and then tell it what the string is. This is because that if I put this constant after the def const, this line will be larger than the allowable 256 characters. The same goes for the execution. We put in chat to all. Then we have to put the constant on a separate line because it's 255 long plus a return, and put the closing bracket on the next line. If you put this constant after chat to all, that line will be larger than 256 characters. So let's see if it gives us, what should it say? Test size. And as you can see, it does give the test size. I have seen that you could use other special characters, like an E with an accent on it in different direction, but this gives unexpected results. I'm going to look more deeply at this in the future at some moment, but at the moment I think with this information and all these special characters and the length you can use, I think you really can go very far already. Next we will have a look at some other errata and addenda. In one of my videos in the past, video 6, I said that for instance, a re-loom, that re is a phonetic way of saying research. This is of course a very silly statement I made because I didn't think it through, and Leaf told me he thought that re meant research item, and I think he's 100% correct, because all the researches in the computer player strategy builder guide is listed under research items. So thanks Leaf for that correction. He also stated that I should have emphasized in the video on relative operators that 2 equation marks are needed to compare two variables or goals or whatever if they were equal, not one equation. That's an addenda. The re is an errata. Also another addenda, I stated in a previous video that you could debug an AI with manual inputs. Just like here, it's running tutorial AI, but you can still do manual inputs. Now, I stated that this was cheating, or it's not, you shouldn't do this unless for debugging reasons. I have thought further about this, and I don't agree anymore with that statement, because you could also make AIs for scenario reasons, which means an AI will execute certain actions in some story or some setup, but maybe also you could program an AI for aiding reasons. For instance, say you program an AI to build a house automatically, nothing more, nothing less, just to build a house when, for instance, the population headroom is below 5. Say you're a beginning player, AI like that would be very helpful if you forget to build a house on time, that the AI builds it for you. It doesn't even have to do it actively. An AI can also aid in chats. For instance, it could chat you a specific build order, or it can chat you certain information. So it doesn't always have to be an action, a physical action an AI can do, but also information wise. So this I just wanted to add as addenda, that it's not necessarily cheating when you help an AI along, depending of course of the situation. When we simulate AI wars, of course in that case it would be cheating. Then we have some comments from Marathon 16 about the prerequisites when building. Gave these comments on the 23rd of May, and it's very interesting what he stated, so I'll just go through what he said. It is very worthy of thinking about it. It says, watching your video, I came across a prerequisite that the game checks when it issues a simple command build house, that the building is available to the player's civ. This can be merged together with the second prerequisite, that the civ-specific, age-specific, technology-specific prerequisites are met. Also, the prerequisite buildings have been placed. The reason I suggest a merging, he says, is because you can build some buildings that do not appear to have a button in a builder's interface. You can build pavilions and unpack trebs. I must note I have come across pavilions which some AIs build. I don't know if this was the ACE AI, if I'm thinking by heart. He says, in PCM mod, Byzantines grant to allies like team bonus ability to build fire towers. Means grant, I think. But all civs can build fire towers with AI, even without a button. So I put prerequisites to building rules. Also in PCM again, there are engineers for Italians who build only military buildings, and eco buildings are built by villages only. But AIs can build anything with anyone. I think Daniel, the mod's creator, told me that he did this on purpose. I don't know that PCM mod, but I'm giving this information for people who do use this. And his statement about pavilions, which I have seen, is very true. He goes on, the resources prerequisites are correct. And you need to add the prerequisite that there are available builders. And that's very true. Yes, this can happen if you forget to increase SN cap civilian builders. Indeed, if there aren't any builders, a building won't be built. Then you've got some strategic numbers like town size minus minimum town size must be positive. It's a very rare problem, but even if the fact is true and you subsequently issue the command, the AI may fail to place a building if no available locations are to be found. But it only decides that it failed to drop it after the command is actually issued. If your town is full, the command is issued, and then in accordance with build SNs, it eventually decides it fails. Since it is very rare to see town size smaller than minimum town size, you can skip this prerequisite, but the builder one is needed. It's important for death matches, for instance, indeed, when you want to build a lot of buildings. Yeah, and the exploration prerequisites, lol, just saw. This is very important, the exploration prerequisites, because sometimes it doesn't build a building because it hasn't explored that bit of the map yet. It's waiting, it's decided it wants to build at a certain location, but it needs to be explored first before the foundation is put down. This can be very frustrating because you don't know if it's bugging because it's not wanting to build it, or it hasn't explored a certain part yet, and there is code to reset the building's location. You can check, for instance, which buildings are in the building queue in a certain way, and if the building queue isn't executed within a certain time frame, you can reset the building plan and try and build buildings somewhere else. This is in a lot of cases not noticed because usually you start home scouting, but it can happen more often, for instance, on nomad style maps where an AI fails even to build a TC or a house because next to the TC where it wants to build a house, that part isn't explored yet, as you don't automatically think of exploring if you don't have any scouting units and just like 3 villages to start with. So the exploration prerequisite is very important and has led to a lot of frustration with a lot of scripters when figuring out why a certain building isn't built. So thanks Marathon 16 for these added points. They're very interesting, and thank you also for participating in the discussions of my video. Also, besides that, thanks for the scripting help you gave me for my AI in the past and probably also in the future. Another errata is a village distribution test. I won't go into it too deeply. I'll just show this slide. Remember, I hypothesized a formula for the distribution of villages when the total resource percentage distribution of the strategic numbers is smaller than 100. What I have changed are some definitions, like vil number means the total number of villagers. Also, this line has been rewritten because it was basically wrongly put down. I only picked up on it afterwards with studying it again. There might still be some mistakes in it, mathematical mistakes. This seems a lot more correct than what I showed in my video. The formula more or less stayed the same. Yeah, so if there are any questions about this or any comments, please feel free to come forward. It's details, but I like things to be mathematically correct. Now we come on to questions and comments from viewers. I had an extended comment from this good man. He says, is there a way to make the AI, and one, keep own attacking units out of range of buildings and countering units? 2, to post defensive units to own gathering sites. 3, post spies near enemy and counter unit types it trains, and then gather more of the resources that needed for counter units. 4, site sensitive buildings, like to build a gapless ring of buildings, palisades around TC in a 1 farm radius, with just a few exit gaps, possibly facing away from the enemy toward gathering sites. Build market dock in safe route sensitive places, castle towers and choke points, etc. Got many questions, been watching your 4-hour tutorial, but looks a bit like unfinished raw footage. Though you are the only one who tried to make one, next time you'll surely pull it off perfect. Try to contract it in just 45 minutes instead of 4 hours, and just the non-economic stuff. It's boring. Cheers. Now, to answer the questions, number 1, I consider this as experts. Yes, you can do this either in rudimentary form, like up projectile detected projectile any, smaller than 300 for instance, that's the time, and you can up retreat now. But you can do it more extensively with level 5 DUC programming, what expert scripters do, which gives very nice AI war matches when you see attacking soldiers keeping away, for instance, from the town center, but still plaguing the villages and stuff. I'm not quite there yet with that programming, but it's still definitely a good point to look at in a future video. Number 2, yes, you can do this either in rudimentary form with up retreat now, up retreat 2, and then you can retreat to, for instance, a lumber camp, or retreat all your spearmen to the lumber camp, for instance. Or you can do it more extensively with level 5 and DUC programming. Also worth to look at definitely in a future video. Number 3, post spies near enemy and count the unit types it trains, etc. That's intermediate. You can scout enemies and count with planers unit type count, or you can build forward outposts like the Promi AI does, for instance. When a certain threshold is passed, it can trigger a goal, and this goal can change villager distribution. For both of these parts, I will work out an example in tutorial video number 11. It is very good to look at. My AI, for instance, uses players unit type count to count the number of, for instance, archers or knights, to decide to build more barracks, for instance, or to train more spearmen, and all that kind of stuff. Also, triggering goals to change your distribution is also a very strategic way of approaching AI programming. So, very valid question, very interesting for next video. Site-sensitive building. Okay, and this is also advanced. You can build buildings behind or in front of other buildings with upbuild. For instance, you could build towers in front of lumber camps to protect them, stuff like that. That's not that difficult to do. Again, we will look at that in the future. I think AI is like the general does this, puts a tower in front of, if I'm not wrong, either a lumber camp or mining camp, which is facing, which is positioned closest to the enemy, to protect the gathering of resources. So that can be done. The building of palisades. Some AIs, I think, like Odette, builds walls using level 5 programming, but you can also use lower levels programming to build walls and to make gaps. Again, it is quite advanced and tricky stuff, but definitely is worth to look at in a future video. The upbuild could let you build buildings safely. Like, for instance, I build my market away from the enemy with upbuild. I build it at the back of my town center. A dock. For that you need more complex programming if you want the AI to calculate is the dock towards the enemy or not. And things like choke points and stuff is also more expert detection programming. But definitely a very valid question. Some things can be tackled more quickly. Other things is very complex. And I thanks you for these comments. I know my videos aren't professional. I can understand if some people think that the videos are long and sometimes boring. I try to approach these videos as a scientific way of doing things. That's why some things maybe are very dragged out. It is true what he says. I should keep every single video to less than 45 minutes. And I could have done maybe this tutorial in the whole 9 videos in 45 minutes instead of 4 hours, but then we would have missed a lot of fun stuff like the different Boolean logical operators and things like that, all those tests that go into it. But it is valid comments, and I will keep these things in mind when making future videos. Also, the questions that this person asks will be addressed in future videos. Not immediately the more difficult stuff, but the more easier stuff will be, of course, tackled first. Then other questions and comments from viewers are here, and I like the positive attitude a lot of viewers have. I must thank all the viewers which are mentioned here, but also which aren't mentioned and have been helping with the videos, going over stuff, and giving advice, giving tips, giving reviews, and basically joining me when the videos go live, things like that. I thank everyone who has participated, viewed, helped me with my AI, and for a lot of good AI scripter friendships that have been built up in the last few months. So thank you for joining on the 10th tutorial video. Hope to see you in the future. Comments, questions, please keep them coming. I will try and incorporate them in the future videos. The next few videos, as you know from video number 9, will be about goals. I can quickly draw that up. Yeah, here it is. expected 22nd of August, goals part 2 as facts. Other stuff will be then what I discussed, the example of that one person I will work out here, and so on. So, thank you for joining, and keep on scripting. Keep well in these health crisis times, and see you. Bye.